Pecha presentation, if anybody's come across it before. Hands up if you've heard of Pecha. Okay, good. So I didn't realize they were going to go on like that. I thought not. So this is more pressure now to do this right, so let's start this properly. Do you know what I love? The smell of pine needles on a freshly cut Christmas tree. The joy of decorating it with your family. The excitement on Christmas morning of unwrapping the gifts that have been waiting for you under the tree. Tearing open the paper to reveal what's inside. How would you feel if this was the sight that greeted you on Christmas morning? The colour from your gorgeous green tree washed away by a flood, and the presents that lay under it lost in the torrent. When the waters recede, you desperately salvage what you can. Lucky for you, some of your presents made it to high ground. But gifts don't matter as long as your family is safe. No one has been washed away this time, but the next flood will come, as Javier knows only too well. There's no stopping it. Javier lives in Choloma, in northern Honduras. He is a member of the local emergency committee in charge of search and rescue in his area. Here's Javier showing us how high the waters reached when the last flood raged through homes in his neighbourhood. The local authorities are either unable or unwilling to help, so young people like Javier have decided to take action. Here, Javier shows us a risk map he produced, a key element of a risk analysis he conducted in his community. You can see the areas most prone to flooding in red and the potential escape routes in green. Javier is not alone in his willingness to step up and volunteer. Andrea lives in another part of Choloma. She is a member of the local Red Cross and is working to become an environmental activist, speaking out against multinational companies and how they destroy people's lives and the environment through their harmful practices. Along with other members of her local emergency committee, she helps to coordinate advocacy campaigns and demonstrations in her area, as well as helping the Red Cross to support the local community when disaster strikes, as it inevitably does. Severe flooding due to climate change is a fact of life in Choloma. Hillsides stripped of trees to make way for African palm plantations only make matters worse, as do the illegal dams that spring up to provide water to irrigate the palm plants, or supply hydroelectric power not to the locals, but to factories downstream. Most of the local people feel powerless, and the injustice of their situation is all too clear. The prospect of a flood in your community is no laughing matter. Yet Trócaire has learned that one of the most effective ways to prepare communities for climate disasters, especially children, is through gamification. Local children love playing the giant version of this game, which teaches them what to do when they have to evacuate in an emergency due to severe weather or flooding. Games are also an excellent awareness-raising tool. Games help us develop understanding and empathy. Games connect us to one another. We've seen evidence of this through our participation in research with Limerick Institute of Technology in the digital games for development education. We ran a pilot where game art and design students designed board games on the European migrant crisis, as it was called. These were tested by Syrian refugees for authenticity and disseminated through youth groups to build empathy and understanding of refugee journeys. Here's Trócaire's humanitarian team testing one of the games. This, combined with our experience of meeting young climate activists like Javier and Andrea, inspired the creation of Project Honduras. As part of our climate change education program, we want to place secondary school students in Javier and Andrea's virtual shoes. Many young people in Ireland believe climate change is the greatest problem their generation face. We've heard from some today. And an intergenerational justice issue inherited from their parents and grandparents. Yet when exposed to its magnitude, teenagers report often feeling powerless, and they often lack the impetus or confidence to act, though not recently. Javier and Andrea live in one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to climate disasters. Their futures are at stake, from a level 1 flood to a level 2 drought to a level 3 hurricane. Honduras has experienced 6 of the 12 strongest hurricanes of the 20th century. While we may have the luxury of ignoring climate change in Ireland, though we don't, Javier and Andrea can't ignore it. They have to act, as does the player in Project Honduras. This is a strategy game where the goal is to show how important it is for communities to work together to prepare for and to combat climate disaster. As Javier or Andrea in the gameplay, you lead a team of 20 dedicated volunteers who are your main resource. You encounter local people who offer to help you perform different tasks in preparation for the incoming disaster or ask a favour of you. All of these tasks and favours require precious volunteers. With limited volunteers at your disposal, you must prioritise carefully and avoid tasks that hurt your disaster preparation. The goal of the game is to achieve the highest level of preparation possible over the course of the 3 intensifying disaster scenarios: flood, drought, and hurricane. After a task is carried out, a text message lands in your inbox. You open it to view images of educational content on real-life relief efforts. It provides a hint to understand if you made the right decision, and this is intentionally unclear until the end of the level to reflect the ambiguous reality of disaster risk reduction. You are awarded points for the task impact, how quickly you complete the tasks, and a random bonus play. But the game doesn't end with your final score. We will create a toolkit for teachers with a game debrief and follow-on activities that fuse this digital experience with a real-world intervention. A game, no matter how remarkable, can never truly represent the lived experience of a human being, nor should it. Javier and Andrea's complex lives and the artificial experience of a Project Honduras player are worlds apart. Yet there is a bridge between these worlds that is built through an emotion no computer can simulate: human empathy. That's the end of the Pecha Kucha, you'll be glad to hear, and I'm glad too. That was a presentation that I had to give at an educational games competition in Nice in the south of France last year. It's a real tough job working for Trócaire and having to go to these places. We were astounded, absolutely astounded, that we won our category, which was the Games in Development category, so the game wasn't quite finished yet. We were up against games that were consisting of augmented reality, of virtual reality, but what Project Honduras had that none of these other games really had was that it was reality. When the judges announced Project Honduras as the winner, we were absolutely, blown away by the fact that we had beaten these games that myself and Jen, who were there, were looking at. And these games the technology was amazing. The months and years of work that had gone into some of these games was evident. And we had entered Project Honduras on a whim, really. But when the judges were feeding back, when they announced us as the winner, they said it wasn't the technology, it wasn't anything else apart from it was the story that we were telling through the game. And that's what got them. And that's what got us over the line. It was a story of Javier and Andrea and their fight against climate breakdown in their country. The fact that we were able to tell that story on behalf of them was something that was really important to the judges, because they recognized that people like Javier and Andrea in Honduras don't often get the chance to tell their story about what's happening to them, especially when it comes to the fight against climate change. And coming away from that, myself and Jen, our dev manager, were talking about it, and we were reflecting on the fact that we should never underestimate the importance and the significance and the potential impact that duty entails. Project Honduras was never about winning competitions, though that's good crack too, especially when you get to go to Nice. It was all about telling the story of Javier and Andrea and all of the people in the countries where Trócaire works and beyond, who are on the front line of climate breakdown. If you want to play the game, which we'd love you to, it's fully finished now and fully functional. If you just go on to Trócaire's website or Google or other search engines are available, Trócaire or Project Honduras, the game will come up, and you just play it straight off our website. And I'd love to hear any feedback you might have on it as well. And if you're out in your different in the different schools or youth groups or whatever settings you work in, and you're talking about climate change, climate justice, and how it affects countries and people in the global south, maybe use Project Honduras as one way to do that. Thanks, guys.